I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow.
I believe I am Charles and Camilla's son. I believe this has been a cover-up.
A royal love charm.
Yes.
Words to send shivers down the spines of the British royal family.
Behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace, a secret has been quietly tearing at the very heart of the monarchy. At 76, King Charles is said to have reached a point where he can no longer bear the weight of a truth kept hidden for more than 40 years. Those closest to him speak of words that stunned even the most seasoned palace aides, words that reveal a life carefully concealed from the world. This is not about speculation or tabloid gossip. The tremors of this revelation are already shaking the corridors of power. A child, a son, someone who exists beyond the official records, a life never meant to be acknowledged, yet impossible to ignore. The atmosphere is tense, meetings grow urgent, and whispers in the palace hint at a reality that could rewrite history. What has been concealed for decades is finally coming to light, and the monarchy, as it has been known, may never be the same. Prepare to witness a chapter in royal history that even the crown could not hide the truth behind the doors that were never meant to open. The words that changed everything. Let's start with what we actually know. According to people who have spent years working within the inner circles of the royal household, King Charles recently had a private conversation with a handful of his most trusted advisors. The meeting wasn't planned as anything monumental. It was supposed to be routine, another discussion about schedules and responsibilities. But something shifted in that room. Sources say the king became overwhelmed, his composure slipping in a way that those present had never witnessed before, and then he said it. The phrase that has now leaked beyond those four walls and sent shockwaves rippling through royal watchers across the globe. He admitted to keeping a son hidden, and he acknowledged that there was a reason behind it. But more chilling than the confession itself was what came next. He suggested that the reason, whatever it was, might not hold the same weight anymore. Think about what that means for a moment. This is a man who has spent his entire existence upholding tradition, protecting the image of the crown, doing everything expected of him even when it tore him apart inside. And now, in what many believe could be the twilight of his reign, he's cracking open a door that was meant to stay locked forever. This isn't about protecting someone's feelings or avoiding awkward conversations at family gatherings. This is about something that could rewrite history, something that threatens the entire structure of succession, the legitimacy of the throne, and the trust between the monarchy and the people it represents. But who is this son? Where has he been all these years? And why, after decades of silence, is Charles finally ready to let the truth come to light? The answers to these questions take us back to a time when the future king was trapped between duty and desire, between the role he was born to play and the man he actually was. The secret relationship that no one saw coming. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind to the 1980s. Charles was married to Diana, a union that the world believed was a fairy tale, but that those on the inside knew was falling apart. The pressure was unbearable. Every argument, every cold glance, every moment of distance was scrutinized by millions. Charles felt suffocated, misunderstood, desperate for connection with someone who saw him as more than just a symbol. We all know about Camilla. That relationship has been dissected, analyzed, and ultimately accepted by the public after years of controversy.
Camilla Parker Bowles excites huge emotions one way or the other. A lot of people hate her. People still blame her for the breakup of the marriage of Princess Diana.
But what if there was someone else? Someone who came into Charles's life during that same turbulent period, but whose existence was buried so completely that even the most dedicated royal historians have no record of her. According to sources who claim knowledge of palace affairs from that era, Charles did have another relationship. Not with someone from aristocratic circles or political dynasties. Not with anyone who moved in the same exclusive world as the royals. This woman was, in the words of those who knew about her, dangerously ordinary. She wasn't connected to wealth or power. She had no understanding of protocol or the suffocating rules that governed every aspect of royal life. And that's precisely what made her so dangerous to the establishment. Charles found something with her that he couldn't find anywhere else. He found normalcy. He found a space where he could breathe without feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on him. But then came the pregnancy. Imagine the panic that must have swept through the highest levels of the royal household when this news broke.
In 1984, a new page was written in the royal family fairy tale when Buckingham Palace announced Princess Diana was pregnant.
A future king, already married to the most photographed woman in the world, expecting a child with someone completely outside the system. This wasn't a scandal that could be managed with carefully worded statements or strategic photo opportunities. This was a bomb that could destroy everything. The Queen herself was reportedly brought into the discussions about what to do. The conclusion they reached was brutal in its simplicity. The child had to disappear, not just from public view, but from existence itself as far as official records were concerned. Making a prince vanish into thin air. What happened next sounds like something from a spy novel, but multiple sources insist this is exactly how the situation was handled. They even gave it a code name within palace circles. A way to refer to the operation without ever saying what it actually was. Every detail was planned with precision that would have impressed military strategists. The first decision was location. The child couldn't be born on British soil. Too many witnesses, too many chances for information to leak, too much media attention on anything connected to the royal family. Instead, arrangements were made for the birth to happen in a Commonwealth nation, somewhere the crown still had enough influence to guarantee absolute silence. Australia and Canada were apparently the top choices because they offered distance, discretion, and enough royal connection to make the necessary arrangements. Hospital records were handled before they even existed. The birth certificate that was eventually filed listed parents who didn't exist, an address that was fabricated, and a family history that was pure fiction. The medical staff who were present were bound by contracts so comprehensive that breaking them would have meant financial destruction and legal consequences that would last a lifetime. But the logistics, as complex as they were, aren't the most heartbreaking part of this story. What really cuts deep is what it must have cost Charles personally. People who knew him during this period describe a man who was genuinely torn apart. This wasn't some casual affair or a mistake he wanted to forget. By all accounts, Charles had real feelings for this woman. He wanted to be part of his child's life. He wanted to do the right thing. But the pressure from above was immense. The Queen made it clear that acknowledging this child would create a constitutional crisis unlike anything the monarchy had faced in modern times. Parliament would be thrown into chaos. The line of succession would be questioned. The public's faith in the institution would crumble. And so Charles made a choice. He chose the crown over the child. He chose duty over love. He chose to erase his own son from his life, to protect the system he was born to serve. And according to this recent confession, that choice has haunted him every single day since. Why this changes everything about the throne. The implications of what we're discussing here go far beyond personal drama or family secrets. This isn't just about Charles feeling guilty or wanting to clear his conscience before he dies. This is about the entire constitutional framework that holds the British system of government together. The line of succession isn't just tradition or ceremony, it's the law. It's the foundation upon which the state rests. And any disruption to that carefully maintained order could trigger a crisis that hasn't been seen since a king gave up the throne for love nearly a century ago. Here's the thing that makes this particularly explosive. If the timing that sources are suggesting is accurate, this hidden son could be older than Prince William. Let that sink in. Under the old succession laws that were in place before reforms happened in recent years, a firstborn son held precedence over everyone else, regardless of almost anything. Even if questions of legitimacy prevented him from actually taking the throne, his mere existence would create legal complications that could take years to untangle. Constitutional experts have written academic papers about scenarios like this, but nobody ever thought they'd have to deal with it in reality. Parliament might be forced to step in, which would create tension between elected government and hereditary monarchy that could fundamentally change Britain's entire political landscape. There are laws on the books that deal with legitimizing children born outside of marriage, but they only apply if the parents eventually marry each other. That clearly isn't an option here. So we'd be in completely uncharted legal territory, and nobody knows how the courts would handle it. One constitutional law professor put it this way: the monarchy's authority depends entirely on everyone believing in clear, unquestionable succession. Any ambiguity doesn't just threaten individual reigns, it makes people wonder if the whole system is valid. The family that secrets tore apart. While lawyers and politicians would be scrambling to figure out the constitutional mess, there's a human cost to all of this that might be even more devastating. The royal family, for all their wealth and privilege, are still people with the same emotional needs and vulnerabilities as anyone else. And revelations like this would test those family bonds in ways that might be impossible to repair. Prince William has built his entire identity around the assumption that he will one day be king. Every choice he's made, from his education to his military service to the woman he married.
The prince has spent more than 7 years in the military. He worked his final shift earlier this week. William is going to move to London to live in Kensington Palace with his wife Catherine.
Has been influenced by that destiny. The suggestion that someone else might have a prior claim would fundamentally shake his sense of who he is and what his life means. For Prince Harry, who has already cut ties with the family and spoken publicly about feeling like he never really belonged, this would add a whole new dimension to his grievances. His complaints about the institution being cold and dishonest would suddenly seem entirely justified. If their father was capable of hiding an entire child, what else might he have lied about? And then there's the ghost of Diana. If she had known about this secret during their marriage, it would have transformed everything. She already felt betrayed and isolated. This would have been confirmation that her worst fears about Charles were true, and that the system she married into was even more ruthless than she imagined. The public adored Diana, and they still do. If this story had come out while she was alive, the support for Charles would have evaporated completely. Even now, decades after her death,
the princess who spent her life in the relentless glare of the public eye died in a speeding car in Paris.
This revelation would change how people remember that entire chapter of royal history. Maybe the tensions we've watched play out in public over the years suddenly make more sense. The awkward family gatherings, the carefully managed appearances, the obvious discomfort when they're all together. Perhaps it wasn't just about Harry and Meghan leaving, or disagreements about duty and privacy. Perhaps there's been an unspoken knowledge lurking beneath the surface, creating divisions that could never be healed because the truth could never be spoken. The life lived in shadow. If this story is true, then somewhere in the world there's a man who has spent his entire life knowing he's the son of a king, but never being able to claim that connection. Try to imagine what that existence would be like. Growing up with royal blood running through your veins, but being forced to use a different name. Celebrate birthdays without your father present. Watch from a distance as your half-brothers receive everything you can never have. The material needs would have been taken care of. The monarchy wouldn't allow genuine hardship. But money can't buy the one thing that matters most: recognition, acknowledgement, a place at the table. This person would have gone through school explaining away the resemblance that people probably noticed. Royal features are distinctive, and throughout his life, he must have heard comments about how he looks familiar, how there's something about his face that seems recognizable, but he could never explain why. As an adult, the burden would have only gotten heavier. Watching Charles's coronation on television, seeing William being prepared for kingship, observing the family's public celebrations and private milestones, every single one of those moments would be a reminder of the life he should have had, the father he should have known, the family he should have been part of.
Prince of Wales steps forward. to give homage to his father, the king.
I, William, Prince of Wales, pledge my loyalty to you, and faith and truth I will bear unto you, as your liege man of life and limb. So help me God.
Mental health experts who study family rejection and abandonment say that the psychological impact of this kind of isolation lasts forever. It creates patterns that affect every relationship, every sense of self-worth, every interaction with the world. This isn't something you just get over or learn to accept. It shapes who you are at the deepest level. And the fact that the rejection came not from lack of love, but from political calculation and institutional self-preservation might actually make it worse. At least if your father didn't want you, there's a clear reason. But knowing that he did want you, that he cared about you, but chose the crown anyway, that's a wound that never stops bleeding. When the old ways of hiding truth stop working. The monarchy has always relied on controlling information. For centuries, inconvenient stories could be buried through influence, intimidation, and the cooperation of media outlets that understood there were certain lines you didn't cross. But we're living in a different world now. Social media has changed everything. Anyone with a phone can be a journalist. DNA testing is available at the drugstore. And once information gets out into the digital world, it's impossible to pull it back. The case of one particular man in Australia demonstrates this perfectly. He's been claiming for years that he's the son of Charles and Camilla, born back in the 60s. Most experts dismiss his story, but here's the thing. He's gotten international media coverage precisely because the palace refuses to address it. They maintain their traditional dignified silence, but in the modern age, that silence looks less like nobility and more like evasion. If his claims are false, why not just prove it? DNA testing could resolve the question in a matter of days. But no one from the royal family has ever agreed to submit to such testing, and that refusal only makes people more suspicious about what they might be hiding. Algorithms on social media platforms amplify these stories. The more engagement a post gets, the more people see it. And stories about royal secrets and cover-ups get a lot of engagement. The palace's old strategy of simply waiting for scandals to blow over doesn't work anymore. Without constant feeding, these stories don't die. They grow. They evolve. They reach millions of people who would never have picked up a tabloid, but who scroll past them on their phones every single day. Commercial DNA testing services have created databases with millions of people in them. Even if Charles's hidden son has never submitted his own sample, genetic matches with distant relatives who have used these services could potentially identify him. This is the nightmare scenario for an institution built on controlling information. Biology doesn't care about royal protocol, and science can prove relationships that were meant to stay hidden forever. The crossroads, where everything changes. King Charles is 76 years old. He's dealt with health issues that have reminded him.
The royal birthdays. Gun salutes for the king turning 76.
And everyone watching that he won't be here forever. When you face your own mortality, priorities shift. Things that seemed overwhelmingly important when you had decades ahead of you start to matter less. And the secrets you've carried, the guilt you've lived with, the truths you've suppressed start demanding to be acknowledged. The monarchy is already facing challenges it's never had to deal with before. Support for the institution is dropping, especially among younger people who don't see why hereditary privilege should still exist in a modern democracy. They expect transparency from their public figures. They demand accountability. The old model of deference and unquestioning respect is gone, and it's not coming back. If this story breaks wide open, if evidence emerges that confirms these allegations, the royal family will face a crisis bigger than anything in living memory. This wouldn't just be about one hidden son. It would be about a fundamental betrayal of trust. The British people have supported the monarchy through scandals, divorces, and all kinds of controversies. But there are some things that might be unforgivable. Deliberately hiding a child, lying by omission for decades, maintaining a facade while knowing it was built on deception. That might be the line that can't be uncrossed. The succession itself could be thrown into question. Prince William's path to the throne, which has always seemed inevitable, might face legal challenges that take years to work through the courts. And this wouldn't just affect Britain. The monarchy serves as head of state for numerous Commonwealth countries, and a constitutional crisis in London would create uncertainty across all of them.
Up to 26 MPs could be ruled ineligible to sit in federal parliament, with a new legal report warning of a fresh constitutional crisis. An article published by the University of Western Australia this week.
Some might use it as an opportunity to finally break free and become republics. What the people inside really think. Within royal circles, conversations about this topic have reportedly become more frequent and more worried. Staff members who have dedicated their lives to serving the family are uncomfortable with maintaining secrets that may be about to explode into public view. They're caught between loyalty to the institution and awareness that the truth might be impossible to contain much longer. Former palace employees are starting to hint at things they've never been able to say. They can't break their non-disclosure agreements directly, but the pattern of their carefully chosen words suggests that significant revelations might be coming. And with the Queen gone, there's no longer the same ironclad discipline about managing information. Elizabeth II had an almost supernatural ability to keep scandals under control. Charles doesn't have that skill, and more importantly, he doesn't have her authority to enforce silence. Royal biographers who have studied the family for decades note that Charles has always been more emotionally open than his mother, sometimes to his own detriment. He wants to explain himself, to be understood, to have his feelings validated. That tendency toward confession and explanation instead of strategic silence might ultimately force truths into the open that previous generations successfully buried. The evidence that can't be denied. Modern genetic testing has created a situation that the monarchy has no playbook for dealing with. You can destroy documents, pay off witnesses, create false records, and maintain silence for decades, but you can't argue with DNA. And the fact that commercial testing has become so widespread means that biological relationships can be proven even without direct participation. If Charles truly has a hidden son, that person's genetic markers could potentially be identified through matches with distant royal relatives who have submitted samples to genealogy databases for completely innocent reasons. This scientific reality has legal experts within the royal household genuinely worried. All the traditional protective measures become meaningless when biology can prove relationships independently and definitively. The royal family's continued refusal to participate in any form of genetic verification, even for claims that are obviously fraudulent, reveals an institutional fear of what testing might expose. In an age where DNA regularly solves cold cases and identifies remains from centuries ago, this resistance seems increasingly suspicious to anyone paying attention. When silence is no longer an option, multiple factors are converging to make this moment different from all the times before when rumors circulated and were successfully suppressed. King Charles's age and health concerns. The fractures within the family that have become impossible to hide. The technological capabilities that make secrets harder to keep. The changing expectations of the public. All of these things together are creating pressure that may finally force resolution. The reported confession, however cryptic or qualified it might have been, represents the first time that sources close to the king have acknowledged these rumors have any basis in reality. Even a partial admission is a significant departure from the absolute denial that has been the standard response to similar allegations in the past. The specific language matters too. Saying he kept a son hidden for a reason implies deliberate concealment, not coincidental absence. It suggests active participation in creating and maintaining a deception. As the methods of information control that worked for generations prove increasingly ineffective, the monarchy may soon face a choice between controlled revelation on their own terms or uncontrolled exposure when the truth leaks out in ways they can't manage. Given the direction things are heading, the second option seems increasingly likely. The question that defines a legacy. King Charles waited longer than any heir in British history to become king. He spent decades preparing for the role, working on causes he believed in, trying to prove his worth and earn respect. But his reign may ultimately be remembered not for any of his accomplishments or contributions. It may be remembered entirely for the secrets he kept and the moment when those secrets finally came to light. The British people have stood by the monarchy through wars, scandals, divorces, and constitutional changes. They've forgiven infidelity and accepted remarriages that once would have been unthinkable. But some betrayals might be too fundamental to forgive. Hiding a child isn't just a private family matter. It's a deception practiced by an entire nation. It calls into question everything the monarchy claims to represent. Can an institution built on hereditary privilege and traditional authority survive in a world that demands transparency and accountability? Can a family that has hidden something this significant ever truly earn back the public's trust? These aren't just philosophical questions. They're practical challenges that may determine whether the House of Windsor has a future. The walls that are cracking. Palace walls have kept countless secrets over the centuries. They've witnessed private conversations and personal struggles that the public never knew about. They've protected the monarchy from scrutiny and shielded individual royals from consequences. But even the strongest walls develop cracks eventually. And in our hyper-connected, information-saturated world, once the truth starts seeping out, no amount of tradition or protocol can stop it. We're watching a collision between old systems of power and new demands for truth. Between an institution that has survived for 1,000 years and expectations it was never designed to meet. Between a father's duty to his child and the crown's duty to the state. The next months and years will reveal which force is stronger. What we're witnessing isn't just royal gossip or constitutional theory playing out in real time. This is history being written. This is a moment that could mark either a new chapter in the monarchy's story or the beginning of its end. The secrets that Charles has carried, the choices he made decades ago, the truth he's apparently ready to acknowledge, all of it is converging into something that will define his legacy and possibly determine the fate of the institution itself. As King Charles stands at 76, looking back on a life lived under impossible pressure, facing forward into an uncertain future, the question isn't whether these secrets will stay buried. It's what happens when they finally come to light. Will the monarchy adapt and survive? Or will the weight of its own deceptions finally prove too much to bear? The truth has a way of emerging, no matter how carefully it's been hidden or how many years have passed. And when it does, it doesn't just change how we understand the past. It transforms everything about the present and reshapes the possibilities for the future. What's your take on this extraordinary situation? Can the monarchy survive if these allegations turn out to be true, or would this mark a breaking point that can't be recovered from? The conversation is happening everywhere, and your perspective matters. Drop your thoughts below, and let's discuss what this means for the future of the crown. And if you want to stay updated on this developing story and other revelations from inside palace walls, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on fiery spirit, his laughter, and her desperate hope that he would never lose that spark. To William, she spoke directly through her writings, almost prophetically, as if somehow knowing that he would one day need to hear her voice again when the world became too heavy. Her words were a bridge across death, connecting mother and son in a way that nothing else could have achieved. The recordings also contained warnings. Diana had begun to see patterns in royal behavior that troubled her deeply. She feared that the institution's need for control would eventually extend to her sons, shaping them into versions of themselves that served the crown's needs rather than their own authentic selves. Her maternal instincts had detected the subtle ways in which the system was already beginning to influence William, and she was desperate to counteract that influence before it became irreversible. She urged her sons without naming them outright to hold on to their humanity, to trust their hearts more than the crown, and to remember that love was not weakness, but the greatest strength they could ever possess. The hidden conspiracy unveiled. As William delved deeper into his father's private papers, a more sinister picture began to emerge. The concealment of Diana's personal effects hadn't been a spontaneous decision made in the immediate aftermath of her death.
28 years after Princess Diana's sudden and shocking death.
Paris, the reports that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
It had been a carefully orchestrated campaign involving multiple levels of palace hierarchy, all working together to ensure that certain truths would never see the light of day. Private secretaries, senior courtiers, and even members of the extended royal family had played roles in this decades-long cover-up. The documentation revealed that Charles had received detailed reports about the contents of Diana's diary and tapes shortly after her death. Rather than allowing his sons to inherit these deeply personal messages, he had made the calculated decision to have them secured in a private vault. The justification given to those involved in the operation was always the same: protecting the boys from unnecessary pain and maintaining the stability of the monarchy during a period of unprecedented public scrutiny. Yet, as William read further, it became clear that there was more at play than paternal protection. Many of Diana's observations weren't simply the musings of a heartbroken woman. They were pointed accusations, naming individuals within the palace who had actively conspired against her. She spoke of betrayals, secret alliances, and carefully crafted manipulations designed to isolate her from the public and from her sons. These were not mere private reflections, but potential scandals powerful enough to destabilize the monarchy if ever exposed. William realized that what had been buried wasn't just his mother's grief, but a truth that could rewrite royal history. But the real motivation ran much deeper than mere protection. Charles feared that Diana's unfiltered voice would permanently damage his son's relationship with the institution they were destined to serve. If William and Harry heard their mother's true feelings about royal life, about her treatment at the hands of the establishment, and about her concerns for their future, they might choose to reject their birthright entirely. The risk to the monarchy's future was simply too great to allow Diana's truth to be heard. The conspiracy had required constant maintenance over the years. Staff members who knew about the hidden materials had to be sworn to secrecy. Security measures had to be implemented to prevent accidental discovery. And most challenging of all, Charles had to live with the knowledge that he was denying his sons access to their mother's final words of love and guidance. The psychological toll of maintaining such a massive deception had clearly affected him, but he had deemed it necessary for the greater good of the crown. What made the revelation even more devastating for William was discovering that several people he had trusted throughout his adult life had been complicit in the cover-up. Royal advisors who had counseled him on important decisions, private secretaries who had managed his public image, and even some family members had all known about the existence of Diana's personal messages while maintaining complete silence. The scope of the deception was breathtaking in its audacity and thoroughness. The emotional reckoning. The days following William's discovery were marked by an emotional intensity that few had ever witnessed from the typically composed prince. Those closest to him described a man grappling with a fundamental shift in his understanding of his own life story. Everything he had believed about his mother's final days, about his father's motivations, and about the institution he was meant to serve had been called into question. The grief he thought he had processed years ago came rushing back with devastating force. William's relationship with Kate became crucial during this period of upheaval.
I think the move to Forest Lodge does signal a new chapter.
She alone was witness to the full extent of his emotional turmoil, watching as her husband cycled through anger, grief, betrayal, and profound sadness. The man who had always been her rock suddenly needed support in ways that their relationship had never required before. Kate found herself serving as both emotional anchor and strategic advisor as William struggled to decide how to respond to his father's deception. The impact extended beyond William's personal relationships to his professional responsibilities as well. Palace staff noticed changes in his demeanor during official engagements. The easy charm and natural warmth that had always characterized his public appearances were replaced by a more distant, guarded presence. He began questioning protocols and procedures that he had previously accepted without hesitation, as if seeing the entire royal machinery through new eyes. What once seemed like harmless tradition now appeared to him as carefully constructed walls, designed to keep both truth and emotion locked away. Sleep became elusive as William spent night after night listening to his mother's voice and reading her words. Each cassette tape revealed new layers of Diana's experience, painting a picture of royal life that was far darker and more emotionally destructive than he had ever imagined. The woman who had always seemed so strong and resilient in his memories was revealed to have been struggling desperately with isolation, manipulation, and the gradual erosion of her authentic self. Her confessions were not the complaints of a fragile figure, but the testimony of a woman trapped within a gilded cage, fighting to hold on to her sanity. The psychological impact of hearing his mother speak directly about her fears for his future was particularly profound. Diana had worried that William would lose himself in the same way she had, that the demands of royal duty would slowly strip away his humanity until nothing remained but an empty symbol. Her words forced him to confront uncomfortable questions about his own identity and the choices he had made throughout his adult life. For the first time, he began to wonder whether his devotion to duty had been an act of service or a slow surrender of the very person his mother had fought so hard to protect. The path forward. As William began to process the full implications of his discovery, he faced a choice that would define not only his own future, but potentially the future of the monarchy itself. The traditional response would be to absorb this knowledge quietly, perhaps using it to inform his private decisions while maintaining the public facade that had protected the institution for generations. But Diana's voice, speaking to him across the decades, seemed to demand something more courageous. The cassette tapes and diary entries weren't just historical artifacts. They were a call to action, challenging William to break the cycle of secrecy and emotional suppression that had defined royal life for centuries. His mother's words carried an implicit challenge. Would he allow himself to be shaped by the same forces that had nearly destroyed her? Or would he find the courage to forge a different path? And this choice wasn't abstract. Every page he turned, every word he replayed on the tapes, drew him deeper into a moral crossroads. He could hear Diana urging him not to repeat the silence that had suffocated her. The decision was no longer about protecting a crown or preserving an image. It was about reclaiming truth, honoring a mother's voice, and redefining what it truly meant to lead. The decision about whether to make Diana's personal messages public became a test of William's commitment to authenticity versus his loyalty to tradition. The institution that had raised him demanded silence and discretion, but his mother's voice called for truth and transparency. The tension between these competing demands created an internal struggle that would ultimately reshape his understanding of what it meant to be a royal in the modern age. His relationship with Charles would never fully recover from the revelation of the 3-decade deception. Trust, once broken so fundamentally, proved impossible to fully repair. The respect and affection that had characterized their relationship gave way to a more complicated dynamic built on wariness and conditional cooperation. William could function as heir to the throne.
Conservationist, father, and future king. Prince William is Britain's most popular royal after his grandmother, the Queen.
But the easy familial bond that had once existed between father and son had been permanently altered. The broader implications for the royal family were equally significant. William's shocking discovery had exposed the extraordinary lengths to which the institution would go to control narrative and deliberately suppress inconvenient truths. The revelation also raised deeply uncomfortable questions about what other long-buried secrets might still be hidden within the guarded palace archives. and whether the public's fragile trust in royal transparency was fundamentally misplaced. As William moved forward, he carried his mother's voice with him in ways both literal and metaphorical. The cassette tapes had given him direct access to Diana's wisdom and warnings, but more importantly, they had given him permission to challenge the system that had silenced her. The future king who emerged from this experience was fundamentally different from the dutiful heir who had entered his father's study just days earlier. The choice of how to honor his mother's memory while serving his destined role created a tension that would define the rest of William's journey toward the throne. Diana's final messages had armed him with knowledge and perspective that no other heir in British history had possessed, but they had also burdened him with the responsibility to decide whether that knowledge should remain private or become a force for institutional change. What lies ahead for William and the monarchy remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the future king will never again be able to serve the crown with the unquestioning loyalty that previous generations had always taken for granted. Diana's voice, preserved on fragile magnetic tape and finally heard after 30 years of silence, had succeeded in reaching her son exactly when he needed her guidance most. The question now is whether her influence will prove strong enough to reshape centuries of royal tradition forever, or whether the crushing weight of institutional expectation will ultimately prevail. Did William make the right choice in confronting his father about this decades-long deception, or should some family secrets remain buried forever? The emotional journey that began with a hidden letter in Charles's private study has fundamentally altered the trajectory of the British monarchy. As we've seen, the power of a mother's love can transcend even death itself, speaking across decades to guide and protect her children when they need it most. What do you think Diana would want William to do with the truth he's discovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if this story moved you as much as it moved us. Subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell to stay updated on the most compelling royal revelations that continue to shape the future of the crown. The truth has a way of surfacing when we least expect it, and we'll be here to uncover every shocking detail as it emerges.